Have a pleasant day to everybody. For today's video, we will be talking about norm or criterion reference grading. Norm reference assessment refers to the standardized tests that are designed to compare and rank test takers in relation to one another. Reflect relative performance. Example, score compared to other students or ranking performance. Where you rank. Grades may reflect relative performance score compared to other students. In such a system, A. Grade depends on what group you are in. B. Typical grade may be shifted up or down depending on group's ability. C. Widely used because much classroom testing is norm reference. In norm reference exam, the score would reflect how many more or fewer correct answers a student gave in comparison to other students. Meaning to say, when we talk about norm reference assessment, we are talking on the performance of particular test taker in comparison to other students in a particular group. Advantages of norm reference grading. It is very easy to use. It works well for the course with retention policies, and it limits only few students to advance to the next level. It is appropriate to the large number of students, and it does not encourage cooperation among students. Disadvantages of norm reference grading. The performance of the student is not determined by his achievement, but also the achievement of other students. It promotes competition among the students rather than cooperation. It cannot be used when the class size is smaller than 40 and not all the students can pass the given course or subject. Example of norm reference grading. 15% of the students will receive a mark of excellence, which in class of 100 enrolled students will be 15 persons. 1 for excellent is equal to the top 15% of the class. 1.50 is for good, next 15% of the class. 2.0 or average, next 45% of the class. 3. Poor or pass, the next 15% of the class. And 5 or failure, bottom 10% of the class. Criterion reference test, also called mastery test, is comparing a person's performance to a set of objectives. Anyone who meets the criterion can get a high score. It is possible for all test takers to achieve 100% mastery. It also measures a student against a specific set of knowledge or criterion. Grades may also reflect absolute performance score compared to specified performance standard, what you can do. In such a system, A. Grades does not depend on what group you are in, but only your own performance standard. B. Grading is a complex task because grades must 1. Clearly define the domain. 2. Clearly define and justify the performance standard. 3. Must be based on criterion reference assessment. And last, conditions are hard to meet except in complete mastery. Advantages of criterion reference system. Students are not competing with each other. Students are thus more likely to actively help each other learn. And a student's grade is not influenced by the caliber of the class. Learners are informed of the behaviors expected of them to pass or achieve a certain grade, and if they are either attain that level of performance or not. Grading is less subjective when criteria are spelled out and each learner is held that standard. Since criterion reference measures and identifies weak and strong points in an individual's performance, It helps to identify the high achievers but not intelligent students, or vice versa, and those who have been achieving progressively at their own rate. Disadvantages of Criterion reference system. It is difficult to set reasonable standard for students. Most experienced faculty set criteria based on their knowledge on how students usually perform. And lastly, Criterion reference system often becomes fairly similar to norm reference system. This is all about pass or fail. Grading differentiates between students only at a minimum level. Example of Criterion reference grading. In case of 100 students, no one might get a grade of excellent if no one scores 98 above or 85 above depending on the criterion used. 1 or excellent is equal to 98 to 100 or 85 to 100. 1.5 for good, 88 to 87 or 80 to 84. 2 for or fair is equal to 75 to 87 or 70 to 79. 3 poor or pass is equal to 65 to 67 or 60 to 69. And last, 5 failure below 65 or above 60. Comparing norm and criterion reference system. In norm reference test, it provides information on how the performance of an individual compare with others. In criterion, it provides information on how the individual performed on some standard of objective. In norm, individual standing is compared with that of known group. In criterion, allow users to interpret what an individual can do without considering the performance of others. In norm, percentile rank is obtained to determine the relative standing in a norm group. In criterion, designed to measure the result of instruction. And last, from norm, emphasize the discrimination among individuals. And in criterion, an individual's performance on a specific behavior or instructional objective emphasizes description of performance. Norm reference grading, it is easy for you to identify the achiever. You only have to analyze or evaluate the highest scorer. And in criterion, it is not easy to pass the given criteria or standard. Example, when it comes to examinations, your score must be divided into the number of items times 50 plus 50 to get the percentage score or average. But if 50% or 75% of the class pass the given criteria or standard, they will be receiving all the award. When it comes to norm reference grading, remember that we are going to assess an individual's performance in the test comparison to the performance of other test takers within the group. In criterion, we are going to assess an individual's performance in the test in terms of set of standards or criteria. That's all. Thank you for listening.